You've seen the headlines around the world. We've got the Occupy movement, the young people of Quebec beating pots and pans. There is growing concern about what our governments are doing. Are they making the right decisions? We have a little story out of Niagara that underlines, sort of as a metaphor, about what's going on in the Western world. In the little hamlet of Queenston in Niagara-on-the-Lake, there was a battle that was taking place for a couple of years about protecting their property. We're going to talk about that during this segment. Jim Armstrong is the president of the Queenston Residents Association. Jim, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, you and your colleagues in your association were really in the heat of battle with the Niagara Escarpment Commission, with essentially the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, with two private companies. Why were you in that struggle?
The struggle arose really because of the increasing intensity of the Whirlpool jet boat company operating off the Queenston sand dock. They have been there on a lease since 1998, and in the first number of years, very unobtrusive, essentially storing boats there, staff parking there, and taking the boats away from the dock to go elsewhere. Occasionally there would be a small tour, a special tour. Most of the activity, as far as my observation in the early years, was doing police training, police services training for body pickup and so forth. As the years went on, they became increasingly interested in being there as a presence. And around 2005-2006, the intensification really ramped up. We began to get buses coming up and down what's called Dumfries Street there, which is the only rated road in town which will take bus traffic. And residents were getting very concerned about what was going on down there. There was an old building down there that they applied to put an addition on. The next thing we knew, the building had been knocked down, and people were very concerned about what was happening and what the effect was going to be on our village. As I say, around 2006, things really ramped up, and our organization was formed in 2007 of a number of concerned residents, and around that time the jet boat company made application to put up a 3,700 square foot building to replace a building that had a total square footage of around 1,352 square feet. Our interpretation of the Niagara Escarpment Planning and Development Act, which had sway over that area at that point in time, was that was not permitted. It was not minor in scale as an expansion relative to the original building, and it would support an intensification of use, both of which were contrary to the Act.
And yet the town approved of it?
The town approved of it.
The Escarpment Commission approved of it?
And of course the proponents of it were in favor of it. So when it passed at Niagara Escarpment Commission, despite a number of deputations over a summer, we were then in the position of having to appeal that decision. We did appeal that decision, and it resulted in an environmental tribunal hearing of some 28 days, the longest we understand in environmental tribunal history. The end result was that we essentially won. The chair agreed with our position. His recommendations went to the Minister of Natural Resources, who rendered a decision supporting his recommendations and specifying that the Escarpment Commission had made an error in issuing the permit for that building, and that it could not be done. Jet boat company continued to operate pretty much as usual after that. They didn't have a building. They had a big tent and two trailers, which they've operated with for the past couple of years, and the intensification kept ramping up. We've had, in the earlier years, a couple of noisy buses that Mr. Kinney finally got rid of. He got some smaller buses for a year or two, and this year he has two what I would describe as city-sized buses, plus the other day I saw one of the smaller buses operating. And these go up and down Dumfries Street about every 20 minutes from May through to October, 7 days a week.
And this is a residential area?
It's very much a residential area in a tiny historical village, kind of village that you can walk up and down in the middle of the road with your dog and talk to your neighbors. Many places have no sidewalks. It's a very quaint and very picturesque village, and we have this going on in the middle of it.
So the residents got together, and you don't represent the whole town. You're
No.
just the little community of Queenston, which is historic. And when you thought of taking on these two private companies, the Escarpment Commission and the town, that must have been discouraging.
Well, it was very daunting, and I guess we were naive to begin with, because my vice president and I thought that we could sort of handle this, and it became very clear that this was a very legalistic procedure. We were very fortunate in having my vice president's stepdaughter, Lisa Triano, who is a lawyer, become increasingly interested in our cause and increasingly involved in our cause, and finally took it on 100% along with some of her colleagues. And that really was the saving grace here, because this is not a friendly process, shall we say, for the lay person. It becomes highly legalistic, and we could not have handled it on our own. It was very clear.
So Jim, if I can sort of set the context, if I owned a property in your community and I was lucky enough to have a property overlooking the water, and I'm there Saturday morning reading the Globe and having my coffee, what will I experience?
From about 10 in the morning on, you will experience essentially continuous jet boat traffic up and down the river as they go up through the gorge into the Whirlpool Rapids and back again. I've seen them run as close as 30 seconds together going up, and others are coming down. Other times they're spaced out. It really depends on their client load, I suppose, how many buses arrive at Melville Street and how many people come to the dock by bus to take a ride up.
Can you hear them?
Yes, you can hear them quite plainly. I don't live on the river. I live back from the river. I can hear them in my backyard. The engines are quite loud. I can also hear the staff on board using a microphone system, a loudspeaker system on board to talk to the passengers. And this, of course, is done by having to shout because of the sound of the engines. And they also encourage the passengers to shout and have a good time as they're going in and out of the beginning of the gorge.
Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.